thank you all very much for joining us. I hope you're all having a great conference. And today I've got this wonderful panel of CEOs who are going to talk about how they're making it work and thriving in AR/VR in 2019. My name is Isabelle Hierholtz. I'm User Strategy Director at Digi-Capital, and I'm going to let the panel introduce themselves briefly before we jump in.
And I'm going to stand up so these people can see me. I'm Paul Kellenberger, CEO of zSpace.
I'm Ryan Fink, CEO and co-founder of Streem. We're making the world's expertise more accessible.
I'm Lynn Rosenthal. I'm the founder and CEO of Periscape VR. We launched the first ever VR experience center at JFK International Airport last June.
I'm the co-founder and CEO of VNTANA. We provide interactive holograms to help brands engage consumers.
Hi, Derek Belch, CEO of STRIVR. We use virtual reality for immersive learning, mainly employee training.
Great. So, Paul, I'm going to start with you. You guys are leaders in the AR/VR education space, and tell us how you stay ahead of the curve.
Sure. I'm going to do this audience interaction just by show of hands. How many people have actually seen or experienced zSpace? Okay, a really small number. 610 is the booth number. You can check it out. It's very, very unique. I get to put that plug in. So zSpace as a company has been around for a number of years. We are pretty deep in education as a vertical. We've actually been in the market for about 6 years. Today we're in about 12,000 schools in the US with complete, I'll say lab implementations. It's a complete solution. So there's a few things that have been really critical to us. One is to listen to our customers, pretty basic. And we've evolved our product family both on the hardware, software, and content based upon customer feedback. So that's been probably the first most important one. The other one is all around innovation, and we've been continuing to invest in innovation in each of those areas. The hardware component, we do have our own proprietary hardware. Think of it like an iMac all-in-one with AR capability. And we also have a laptop, and you can see both of those if you're over on the exhibit floor. The other one that's pretty unique to the company and has to do with the roots of the company, we were started really as a government project 13 years ago. And the objectives of the government project were a very comfortable user experience, what we call natural and direct interaction with virtual objects, and then collaboration, which was really unique. The last thing is, and again, many of you may not have heard of zSpace, we actually are well known in the education market here in the US. Maybe not known generally, but well known. So we have a strong brand with real strong momentum.
Thank you. Lynn, I'm going to jump to you. You did your pilot at JFK, so briefly I'm going to ask you to tell everyone why airports, and then secondly, I'd like for you to tell us how, even with just a pilot, you managed to maximize revenue in a very short period of time.
Sure. So I'm a stressed out international traveler with hours of dwell time frequently. And I was on a flight where it started blizzarding in Chicago. Half the flights were canceled across the country, including mine. And I just spent $8 on a bottle of water. So I quickly went and I ordered a tequila, because life knows when you get delivered limes, just add the dang tequila. So I started thinking, you know, this as an entrepreneur and I'm an expert in retail. We have a media strategy firm and love VR and have been in it for years. How could I change this market sector? So I was looking around, you know, who here has done VR? Has everybody done it? I mean, to me, it's the most, you know, joyful experience there is. And it's also the perfect panacea for the stressed out traveler. And so I thought this is the perfect place to launch the Periscape's Virtual Reality Experience Center. We use data analytics in real time, so we could watch what was going on, and you know, entrepreneurs like me need to balance our creative side, our drive for instinct, our passion for our project with rational numbers, data-driven analytics. And so we are able to use them, and we use them based on a live activity feed in order to make adjustments and pivot our business model so that we can succeed. And using those daily dashboards and visualizing data, it tells a story and lets us make changes. And it's been sort of what's helped us change our
Talk about those
business
changes, because
model.
it was quite dramatic, the way you were able to reduce the time when you were actually active based on when travelers were there, and how you were able to increase price.
So we're self-funded, so I make changes quickly. We're watching the real-time analytics. Now, when you have real-time analytics, you can make change. You see what's going on at a glance, right? So you can pivot immediately. So we were looking at the analytics, and we saw that 89% of our customer throughput was within a 10-hour period. So we didn't need to be open from 6 a.m. till midnight. So I quickly cut the hours of operation, reduced our staff by 75%, and doubled our revenue, which is important for startups and people like me, because we frequently overspend. We underprice our products. A lot of entrepreneurs do, and we overspend on cost. So something we think a lot about.
So good lesson there. Don't be afraid to push your prices up and watch your costs. For you, Ryan, a different question. You identified a really interesting critical use case. And tell us about how you did that and how you went after it.
Definitely. So how many people here love having strangers in their home? We have one, an extrovert. Awesome, too. Okay. Cool. We should talk after. So I don't. That's kind of my safe space. So, I think we've all experienced, when our internet goes out and you're on the phone trying to blindly describe this, get it resolved, and to no avail. So now you have to have somebody come out to your home, you're without internet, maybe days or weeks later, and they come out, you're reserving, 3 to 4 hours window, hopefully they show up. Now they show up, they spend 5 minutes, and they fix it. And that's a really, really bad experience for you, the customer. You've just wasted a ton of time, just like the enterprise. They roll the truck for probably no reason. And this is the support process that is across so many verticals. And when it's broken for both sides and both sides want something better, there has to be a better solution. So at Streem, we're approaching this first from that pain point, from the customer's perspective. We don't want them to have these strangers in their home. So for us to be able to do that, we need to empower the expert to be able to do a lot of their job remotely. And so to do that, we had to build a couple of different components. So one is we had to beam that expert into the home. So we're using one-way video and two-way audio. It's not a FaceTime chat. It's really meant to see what the issue is and communicate and collaborate on it. Once that connection's made, we're using a very simple form of augmented reality, very simple. We're literally just allowing that remote expert to reach out and point by anchoring a 3D arrow or an annotation to say, hey, this is what I need you to do next. And so it becomes a much more efficient and human collaboration experience. And we're seeing efficiency gains just by using that small component of up to 40%. And then thirdly, and most importantly in our case, or what we believe, is that the expert still a lot of times has to go on site to do things like capture data. They need measurements, they need serial numbers, model numbers, they need more context. So our third pillar, what we like to say at our company, is providing this remote expert with that context. So in the background, when this seemingly normal, simple video call is going on, we're creating a 3D spatial mesh of the environment so that pro can take these really accurate remote measurements. We're also running the images through our OCR, optical character recognition, so we can pull out things like serial numbers, model numbers. And then we're running it through our object recognition as well to say, is there water damage, or did this wire come out of the ice box? Is it something we've seen before and we could recognize and surface that context to the pro? And we actually just announced last week, we acquired a company called Celerio. It's a UK-based computer vision machine learning company. So they're really helping advance our third pillar, that intelligence layer. And a lot of these enterprises, they're sitting on a ton of this information, a ton of this data that they're not utilizing. It's a treasure trove. They can learn about their processes, they can learn how to improve them, and they can learn about their products and improve their products. And so we're really working with these enterprises to help them learn from this information. And we're finding really good reception so far. So like most of you, all but two, customers would rather have a Streem experience instead of having someone come out to their home. So 95% is a lot. And then also enterprises are reducing, up to 42% of their unnecessary truck rolls, because now they can see the issue, they can resolve it the majority of the time.
Thank you. Derek, I'm going to come over to you now. You landed the whale. You landed Walmart. So you had to scale dramatically from startup to servicing a huge enterprise client. Can you tell us about that transformation?
Sure, yeah. So for those of you who aren't familiar with us, STRIVR, we started in sports about 5 years ago using virtual reality to train quarterbacks, linebackers, basketball players, et cetera, to give them more mental reps when they're off the field based on the rules of when you're allowed to practice and when you aren't in professional and collegiate athletics. And then we started working with Walmart a few years ago, and as I'm sure many people in the room who follow the industry are aware of, Walmart rolled out 17,000 Oculus Go headsets to every one of their 4,600 stores in the fall and the early part of this year. And when I say Walmart rolled out, I mean we rolled it out for Walmart. There are a number of things that it takes today, while the industry is very nascent, to do this at scale. And I can objectively, not arrogantly say that we are one of the only, if not the only companies in the world doing VR at scale in the enterprise. And I say that because, as we're all aware, there is no enterprise-grade VR device that exists right now. They're all consumer devices that basically have to be made enterprise-ready for one deployment, let alone 4,600 stores for Walmart. So, number one, this is not something that Silicon Valley likes to hear from an investment perspective, but it's a people problem first and foremost. We're very fortunate to have made a good amount of money in the last few years with a real business model. We've also raised money, and therefore we have 130 employees, and the next closest person or company in our space is like 60-ish. So we just have a lot of bodies to throw at all of the operational, product engineering, sales, marketing, customer support, right? All the work that goes into doing this at scale. With Walmart specifically, we have had a lot of people, including myself, physically visit Walmart stores over the last several years as we've been kind of ramping up with them and testing and making sure that this would be able to exist in that type of environment every day. The second thing is there is a misunderstood problem in the VR world right now. So one of the most important things for VR to exist at scale has to do with internet connections. You have to have a consistent internet connection in order to push and pull content to the customer, collect data, do remote support, and all of the other things that come with a very complicated piece of hardware being up and running every day. And if we think about where the Fortune 1000, right, where they're deploying virtual training right now, it's not in a posh office building. It is in a factory, it's in a store, it's in the back room, it's over in the corner, right? Like, internet connections are not reliable and consistent in those environments around North America. So 5G can't come soon enough. And we've done some very creative things with our software to tell the device when to pull and push using an internet connection and when not to. Sometimes we've used LTE modems if maybe the store or the factory doesn't have reliable Ethernet or Wi-Fi. But bottom line, in order to pull this off at scale, it's a technology problem, but it's also a people problem, and we've been very lucky to be able to do both in a short amount of time.
Thanks, Derek. Ashley, over to you. What struck me when we spoke is you described how you've been able to turn one-off pilots into ongoing engagements. So if you can tell us a little bit about how you pull that off and give us some examples.
Yeah, so we started about 7 years ago, and I always say, we built hardware because we had to. There was nothing on the market to do what we wanted to do, to put the digital in the real world. And so we did that, and our first clients were concerts. We did hologram concerts and events for brands, which investors hate hearing events, just like they hate hearing the people problem. But events pay you 50% up front and 50% the day of the event. So we were able to self-fund and grow. And what we did was we created a network of contractors. My background right before I started the company, I was programming light shows for DJs on the weekend. It was really fun. It's my favorite job I've ever had, besides this one, of course. But we grew this network of concert roadies who were tech savvy, knew how to set up AV equipment, liked contract work, and were distributed across the world. So we've got a team of 50 contractors trained on how to set up VNTANA equipment. So we just call on them as we have an install job. And then the core team is software. And so really at the heart of what VNTANA is doing is allowing brands to put their products into AR, VR, because everything we run is on a game engine. And our clients from Lexus to Adidas, none of them had these 3D assets required for this, which was crazy to us. So using our own hardware, we built software to take their design file and put it in game engine quickly, efficiently. And now we're starting to license that out to use on all these other devices. But because we were solving that real pain point for them, and then also because we were tracking data, no matter where that asset is, we could really tell them, 10,000 people like the blue shoe instead of the red shoe. And all of that syncs with their CRM system. So at the end of the day, we can tie our experiences to their sales. And so that's what will keep you getting more budget.
Fantastic. Paul, I'm going to come back to you. You touched on it earlier. Can you tell us a little bit more about what was involved switching from working with In-Q-Tel and who they are to schools?
Sure. So as I mentioned, the company started 13 years ago, was really a government project, deep in R&D for 6.5 years. When we completed that government contract, which by the way was around 2013, which is pre-Oculus, a lot of companies really, and the whole VR, AR, really the interest cycles. We looked at a number of different markets, and all of them were in the enterprise, medical, manufacturing, and by the way, a lot of things have changed, and a lot of companies have really developed, and the market is much better understood. In fact, we called our product virtual holographic. This was before VR became in vogue, and obviously when VR, AR became understood, we modified our marketing. But we tried a bunch of things in a bunch of different industries. We were very early, and our major focus was to pick a market where we could scale the business and get to the high tens of millions of dollars as fast as we could. And by the way, you could call government enterprise because it's B2G. It's our money that's paying for the implementations in the schools. But we made the decision after some initial pilots with a school district actually locally here in Silicon Valley to go very deep. And there's a good and the bad to education. And I've talked to a few folks about education. Venture capitalists here in the Valley, generally speaking, don't like education. And when I say that, I really mean K-12. They look at it as a fragmented market, difficult to scale a business, not a lot of money, so or difficult to find the money. But we figured our way through that, and it took us 3.5, 4 years of pretty deep investments to be able to get to the point where we've scaled the business. And as I said, we're now in the high tens of millions of dollars. We kind of did it the hard way. We didn't get a big Walmart contract of 40 whatever million dollars in one fell swoop. But we've gone deep in education. We have a real strong value proposition. And quite frankly, that's what it took. The use cases that went into it, the engagement that students, teachers in the classroom is a key part of our value proposition. So again, zSpace, you'll hopefully hear of in education. We're more AR than VR, but again, it's very unique. So I encourage you to check it out.
Very good. So we all know with startups, you have to learn from the market and go where the market is. And Paul was touching on that. I'm going to go back to Derek so that you can talk a little bit more about, you were doing really well in sports and you took the decision to go bigger. Can you tell us more about that process, how you went about it?
Yeah, I mean, I think it was a pretty simple decision, honestly. Everyone in the room, I mean, market size is something that everyone thinks about if they're going to start a business or they're going to grow a business. And one enterprise customer can and does pay us more than all the sports teams combined could, right? So so this is sports, and enterprise is like that big. So that was pretty easy. However, bigger than that, bigger than money, when the first time I met with Walmart and then subsequent enterprise customers after that, the formula was identical. So the problem that quarterbacks faced with poor preparation techniques and not enough time to get reps was identical in the corporate world as well. So what we're very proud of right now is we are really creating a category, and we're calling it immersive learning. And if we think about the way that organizations approach training, we've all probably done this at some point, right? It's a video, it's a PowerPoint, it's a role play, it's how fast can I click through this? Maybe I'm falling asleep, information goes in one ear and out the other. So that was a formula that was working in sports for us, and the transition into the enterprise was very simple. And then now, as we kind of see this going forward and we think about what's our value proposition, what's the ROI going to be, how are we selling this, et cetera, we all know about the science of VR on your brain. Otherwise, you wouldn't be sitting here today, right? So it has been scientifically proven to be better for your brain, and it achieves mental transportation. If I'm here, my brain will feel like I'm somewhere else. So now, from a learning standpoint, we have done A/B testing, and you can put someone in VR for 20 minutes, and they will learn the same or more as they will in a 3-hour lecture on the same topic, for example. In some cases, we have seen companies eliminate an entire day's worth of training and put it in a 15-minute VR session. So like the ROI, yeah, it's cool, thank you. So, and that's not just us, that's the industry as a whole, right? But the ROI is so obvious, it's just a math problem. Like this is not about, cool tech or the future of this or the future of that. That's all important too. But we have gotten to the heart of what our customers really care about, which is better trained employees in a shorter amount of time and hopefully spending less money. Like they're running businesses. So the value prop is there, and now we're just, tweaking it and refining it.
Cool. So now what I'd like to do for the startups in the room or anyone thinking about starting a startup, I'd like each one of you to tell us what you've learned along the way that you wish you'd known when you started off. I'll start at this end and we'll roll down.
I'll answer the question with a slight twist on it. Okay. And part of it is I was the other night at another event and talked to many, I'll say, young entrepreneurs, CEO, founders. And a couple of them were saying, what's the most important thing? By the way, I'm probably the oldest guy on this panel up here. And this is my 5th startup. And they were asking, what is the most important thing as a CEO that you go do? And, they were thinking strategy, they were thinking product, they were thinking innovation, they were thinking markets. The reality is it's fundraising. So my advice would be make sure you have your eye on that ball, and because without it, unless you are self-funded, and there's a couple of folks up here that are doing that, which is great, make sure you make that a priority.
Okay, thank you.
Oh, there's so much. Well, if you're trying to sell into an enterprise, approach it. Something we learned very quickly is don't build what the enterprise thinks they want. If they knew what they wanted, they would build it. So approach it from the pain point that they're having, and then that end experience, and build a solution around that. And once you've identified that, try to build it in a way that fits within their existing process in their workflow, and just try to enhance that. And then kind of build from there and take over the world. But it makes it a lot easier than just keep beating your head against the wall. So we did that for a little while until we figured that out.
Lynn, what's your answer for world domination then?
For world domination. For world domination, our answer is, I learned a lot in the weeds at JFK. Mostly that there are a lot of issues that I was struggling with location-based entertainment, and ways that I thought that we could really improve Periscape and our product in order to mass scale. Because while we were on the ground, the first day we had over 500 global earned media hits because we were first to market. And we had 400 global opportunities come in the first month. And I stopped counting at that point. It became huge. And I knew that in order to scale, I needed to change my product. So we immediately started putting in hundreds of hours to make the product fully automated, self-service, portable, lightweight, remote content, remote operations, requirement for no staff. We're using CleanBacks technology, which we're building into the towers, which if you don't know about it, matter of fact, is the CEO here? Is Amy here? Amy is the CEO. If you don't know about it, CleanBox removes 99% of the bacteria. It's medical grade, it's eco-friendly. So while other LBs do not clean they may clean their heads once a day. To me, this is very important. That's another thing that we're doing. We're deploying with CleanBox in the tower so that they don't have to worry about finding if there's no brand ambassador. If we're fully automated, they don't have to figure out how to clean their own headset.
Yeah, and it helps with the 3.
Right.
We're getting very low on time, Lynn, so I'm going to cut you off so we can hear from both Ashley and Derek before we finish.
Yeah, I mean, I would reiterate, just like really listen to your customer and what value they're really getting out of your product. For us, in the beginning, it was engaging consumers at trade shows, retail, sports stadiums. That's actually how we connected through sports. But every single project we had was when we were realizing, oh, we don't have this asset. Oh, we have to hire this CGI company. It costs millions of dollars. And that's when we were like, wait a second, we can do this for you better, cheaper, faster. And so we built our software to do that. And now that's becoming the main piece of our business and licensing that. And if we hadn't been listening, we wouldn't have realized, so.
Yeah, number one thing I've learned that I wish I had known and can share with all you guys, change is inevitable. People change, they come and go, the market changes, the product changes. Don't resist change, embrace it, and therefore think about evolution versus change, right? Change has a very negative connotation. Evolution has a very proactive connotation, which is I'm going to evolve to get better. Personally, the company, et cetera. So embrace change and think about how you're going to evolve over the days, weeks, months, years that you're running your company. And then you won't be taken by surprise, and you also won't get frustrated when things are different a year later because you're going to know it's coming.
Okay. Look, thank you very much for your time. You're very busy people. Thank you very much.